Hello everyone and welcome to Technique. I'm Sam Fry and this is the podcast where we talk to artists about how they use technology. Now, if you haven't listened before, you might not know that on these podcasts we talk to various artists and essentially bring them together to share their stories. And bringing artists together is exactly what an art curator does too. Now actually, wouldn't it be a really good theme for an episode to have an art curator come on? So yeah, I kind of alluded to it before the theme tune, but today we are going to be talking to an art curator. It's Dorian Rios, and here she is introducing herself.
My name is Dorian Rios. I am a researcher and curator specialized in digital cultures. I run an independent platform called Antimaterial, which is basically a research and exhibition platform focusing on digital practices in Latin America.
So Dorian and I met after a Technique event at IBM, and Dorian had been put in touch with me by a mutual friend. Now, as you might be able to tell from her accent, she's not actually originally from the UK, she's from Mexico. So I thought I'd start the episode by asking her a little bit about what brought her to the UK.
Since I was very young, I was very, very drawn to London for some reason. And when I first came here, when I was 12 years old, I just completely fell in love with it. And I thought to myself, when I grow up, I will live in London. And I suppose that means that now I'm a grown-up, which is scary. But, I can tick that off my list. And, basically it started as that. And then, when I finished the school, I graduated from architecture school in Mexico. Took a long time. And when I finished, I realized that I didn't quite want to do something within the traditional form of architecture. So I started looking for things to do. I already had a very particular interest in digital visualization and digital architecture and the way these sort of digital tools tend to shape architectural outcomes. So I started doing some research on that. I came across a bunch of different people who were doing digital artwork, not necessarily architecture related, but I just, one thing led to the other and I realized, that's what I want to be doing. But it was very tricky because, of course, that has no name as such. It's like, okay, I'm interested in this area, but I'm not quite sure how to tackle that or what to do with it. And then I started working for a magazine, an arts and architecture magazine, doing some architecture research mainly. And I came across various artists who were collaborating with architects. And when I had, some informal chats with them about my own interests, pretty much all of them kind of considered that probably the best way to approach that was as a curator. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, it makes sense because curators in the end kind of like, they do this theoretical side of it and, art history related and art related mainly, but they also have to deal with space. And space is basically what I know. So I thought, yeah, it makes sense. And I started looking for MAs that I could apply to, regarding curation. And if there was something that was more related to digital art curation, that was basically my approach to it. I couldn't find such a thing. But what happened is that in Mexico, we didn't really have something quite as formal as a master's degree. So there were a lot of diplomas or courses where you could become a curator, but not quite as professional as doing a master's degree. So yeah, then I started looking for schools. And of course, due to the language, I don't really speak proper French or Italian or German. So I was like, okay, I need to look for a place that can give me this with the tools that I already have. And well, at that time, it was also when Trump was running for president. And I was like, well, okay, US is not going to be the place because what if this guy wins? It's going to be very scary, and it's still very scary, so it was a good choice probably. And I was like, you know what, I think that I could probably pursue my dream of going to the UK. And yeah, I started looking for schools, and I ended up in Winchester School of Art, which is part of the Southampton University. And I landed up there because they have a research group regarding media archaeology. So even if it wasn't a master's degree related to specifically digital art, they did have an area that specialized in media, which was close enough for me to, as a starting point.
Okay, so that's a bit of a summary of why Dorian came to the UK in the first place. But how comes I'm talking to her today? Well, primarily it's because she runs a website called Antimaterial. And what that website does is to bring together lots of digital artists from Mexico online. I asked her a little bit about why she started the site.
When it started, it was, I would say, it started out of pure stubbornness, which is great. Because before coming here, I did a diploma in curatorial studies in Mexico. And I kept on wanting to talk about Mexican digital art, and I couldn't find much information about it. And a lot of the first projects that I wanted to do, which were basically essays, the people that I was pitching this to were saying, okay, that's fine, but you need official sources, or you need at least to show me a website that has this information condensed, that I can, go into and say, oh, okay, this person actually exists, and they actually do some things. So I realized that there wasn't such a thing. There are a couple of books regarding digital art in Mexico. One that is actually called Digital Art in Mexico. There's another one that's called Ready Media. And, that's basically it. So I thought, if there is no such thing, I will build one, So it started as me just wanting to have an information platform regarding these practices. It started as a very simple project. I started approaching artists, talking with them, making some interviews with them, and then uploading their profiles in this website. And, I kind of wanted to build this thing where, whenever you Googled digital art in Mexico, this could pop up and say, oh, there's all of these artists who are working in these areas, and that's great. Then later on, I realized that wasn't enough, that, normally these artists tend to have very few opportunities of exhibiting their artwork. There's still a gap, I would say, in understanding digital art as a proper art form in Mexico. And, there's very few places that are actually interested in these practices. And I thought, okay, so all of these people is making all of this artwork, and it's very sad that they get to just exhibit this probably once somewhere, and then no one knew that this happened. Or there were people who were exhibiting their artwork abroad, which is amazing because they are amazing artists. But then again, they felt a bit sad about the fact that yes, I've exhibited in Canada, in the US, but I haven't had the chance to exhibit in my own country, which is very sad. So I realized that was another problem to it, and that I could actually tackle that. I was like, okay, we have all of this information here. Now we need to do something with it. It took me a while to start doing the exhibitions because I wanted to set up the proper environment for it. And yeah, I think basically I took it from there. And then the third step was to start writing about that in a more formal way. And that happened because I realized that the website and the whole project had a lot of layers, and I really wanted to look into every single one of them. From the very first approach of just having some information, for people who are just like wandering around and clicking things and, saying, oh, okay, this is cool. And, maybe that's it for them. But even for these people, it works. So the second step would be the exhibitions, which is, if you are a little bit more interested on that, and then you realize that this is happening, and you can, go to the opening or see things online of what happened and read a little bit about that. So that's probably the second step. But the third step is to actually go in depth about what's going on within these practices in a more theoretical, academic way. The first exhibition that I had from Antimaterial, I had it almost a year ago. And when I was looking for a place to do this exhibition on, I realized that, well, of course, most of the people was interested in local art rather than art from other places, which I thought was very interesting because I think that in Mexico is normally the other way around. If you come across someone who is doing something that is going to bring, art from abroad, normally it gets very exciting very fast. Whereas in here, it's like, I'm not sure. Let's see what you can, offer in terms of the local community and not only providing opportunities for artists that come from other places. So I think that kind of switched my way of approaching this, and I realized that what I really wanted to do wasn't to just have, an exhibition that showcased artists from Mexico and, kind of like just bringing that over for people to look at it or, approach it in a certain way. But actually what I wanted to do is to create opportunities for both sides, because I realized that also it's like it tends to happen that within these practices, that is, you can say that within contemporary art, this is like a small bit of it that tends to be more related to other areas than art. What happened is that I started to think about this as a potential collaboration with local artists. So what I did first was that I brought the work of 7 Mexican artists to the UK, and in exchange I did an open call for British artists who were working with these techniques and media arts and digital arts, and showcased that in Mexico a couple of months later. And that was really, really nice, because most of the artists that applied and that, became part of this show in Mexico, were people who went to the exhibition and that wanted to do something in response to that exhibition. It wasn't part of the open call. I think it just happened. I think it happened that they went to the exhibition, saw the artwork, and realized that they had something in common with what was going on in there, and created something in response to that, which I thought was really nice. Because then in Mexico, the artists that had their exhibition here first saw this artwork and said, I can completely understand why this person would say that, it sort of relates to what I did for that show. And, I haven't heard that they have started, working on something together, but I do know that some of these artists started to talk to each other and say, I saw your artwork here. And, kind of like talking about their interests and what came what was their process in creating this artwork in response, or, it was a very interesting thing to see, I suppose. And that's probably what I wanted to do in the first place. Well, the first exhibition was basically surrounding the idea of internet's ubiquity and the idea of, what happens when an artist posts an artwork online and it starts spreading around on the web, and then, this same artwork is being exhibited in a museum or gallery. What kind of relations do you start building from the beginning when you post this online? What leads you to say, I want this to be there, for people to see, to download, to remix, to do whatever. And you don't really have any control over that anymore, in a way. However, this agency of posting something online and kind of letting go, I think it's a very interesting thing, especially for artists, to, say, I'm completely aware of this and I'm fine with it. And some of them were even looking forward, seeing someone else doing something with their work. So that's, for the first exhibition, that was the core idea, let's say. Of course, the artist approached this idea in very different ways. I had augmented reality pieces, installation, video installation, VR, 3D print as well. So I thought it was, basically challenging that idea of what happens when I post an artwork online. What's the lifeline of that? What's going to happen with this? And if they were aware of that or not. And then for the second show, I used the concept of an archipelago. So it's a series of islands that work together, and if one of them stops working properly, everything fails.
Right.
So I grabbed that idea from Edward Glissant, that he says, why not approaching the world as a huge archipelago, as a huge system of islands, which is basically continents, and to have this idea that if one fails, the rest fails as well. So it was an idea of how to create your own identity within a global framework without necessarily having to lose or adapt yourself to someone else's traditions, but rather understanding them and kind of like exchanging ideas with that. So it was a very, very simple thing because I really wanted the artists for the open call to have freedom to experiment with, how to approach the idea of having a show in Mexico, which wasn't in Mexico City, it was in my hometown, Toluca. And I also wanted to challenge that, of when you think about Mexico, normally it's like, Mexico City or, Cancun. But what happens when you get confronted with the idea of a very tiny place? Are you still attracted to do something for it? Do you research about the place? And if you Google that, what did you Google? What happened there? Of course, I Googled, Toluca. But of course, we know that the results that I get is not the same results that other people will get. So I thought it was a very interesting exercise for them to kind of push them to say, you have to do a little bit of research about this place, because if you want to exhibit here, you need to at least know where it is and how it looks like. So it was kind of like, in a very subtle way, just wanting the artist to approach the idea of how to engage with this place and with the local artists through digital art. And yeah, basically what happened there is that I had people that were already working, for example, with some pre-Hispanic ideologies from Mexican cultures. And there I had people I had one artist who, it was very interesting because his name is Joshua Wolford, and he comes from a very small place near Winchester. And when he told me that when he Googled Toluca, he couldn't tell the difference. He was like, oh my God, what? Like, this looks very similar to my own hometown. This is very strange. This is a place that is, the other side of the planet, that I would have never thought that a Mexican city looks like this. It looks like my hometown. So he did a series of scans of his hometown, resembling some images that he saw of Toluca online, kind of wanting the audience from Toluca to look at them and wonder if that was Toluca or if that was somewhere else. So I thought, it was very nice to have that sort of connections and that sort of, trying to speak to someone you don't know and that you might feel that you don't have anything in common with, and then through the process realizing that actually you do, and that actually you can and want to communicate something. I thought, that was basically what happened for the second show, and it was very nice. It had a very, very good reception in Toluca. People were very happy with it. They were very interested in what was going on there. And of course, even if there were some language barriers, because some of the videos were in English, I think most of the artists wanted to, approach the audience in a very individual and personal way, which I thought was very nice. That, I don't know, I would say it's not that common, really, to, have someone wanting to fully communicate a very particular idea to a very particular audience, even if you don't know the audience. I thought that was very nice, especially for an open call.
So Dorian had created these couple of exhibitions, but what had she actually learned on the way? What mistakes did she make? I thought I'd ask her a little bit about that.
I think that, the challenges, of course, for the first exhibition, for example, I really, really wanted to do an open public program. And I really wanted to do, workshops and talks and screenings and a lot of things. I wanted to do everything, basically. And I did all of this and I organized all of this. But I realized that I didn't quite understood the audience, the local audience yet to do something like that. So, of course, a lot of the events that I did were expecting a lot of people and, not that many people turn up, which is okay. I mean, most of the people told me, this is normal, this is fine, this is, this is what happens in here. And I thought, okay, this is not what I was expecting, but not in a bad way. It made me, realize that I have to understand the audience much more than I did by then in order to do something like this and be successful at it. So I learned a lot from that, particularly from the public program part. In terms of the exhibition, of course, like I said first, when I was looking for a place to do the exhibition, and I had to rethink my strategy on how to approach people, that was also very challenging because it wasn't that people weren't interested in this. It's just that, they were expecting other kind of outcomes as well that could provide a local impact also for people who is working in here, which I think makes sense. And I think it's really nice to have to think about that as well. So I think that was also, very challenging at first, but it was also because I was very new to the UK and I wasn't really aware of how things worked. Even things as simple as saying, how many days of the week we're going to have the exhibition open and for, during which times and what's like the best time to do an opening, for example, which day, and the screenings, at what time should we do this? And, I had a rough idea of that, but a very Mexican idea of that, I suppose, because of the previous experience that I had. I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. And then I tried it here, and of course it didn't work. And of course it didn't work because, it was not the same audience. But I think that it made me realize that there were many other things at play that might not feel that important, but that definitely are. The first two were basically self-funded, and it was a thing of finding people to collaborate with who were interested in the project, kind of exchange not money but labor, basically. So for the places, like I said, at first I had to come up with a strategy that would be appealing for in this case I had this done at the foyer of the West Side building of Winchester School of Art. So of course here was the case of, this is an art school, you could be exhibiting people from the art school, it's what we're doing here. Why would we want to have something external when we have plenty of artists here? So that was basically the problem, the main issue that they raised. And having to come up with a strategy for that, it was very interesting because it was basically that. It was a negotiation of, saying, I can bring this, which is interesting because of these reasons, and then I can, give this in return. In Mexico, it was very, very similar. I contacted a local gallery in Toluca. Toluca is a very small city, so it's not like we have plenty of galleries. And I said basically that, I'm going to I want to do this exhibition. And basically this exhibition is meant for people from Toluca, So this is something that needs to be there, and I have to find the proper space to make this happen. And then after that, this gallery was very, very nice and very helpful. And they were very happy with having this. And they had to, work out all of this setup because I was here. And that was very hard, to work from afar, suppose, because in the first exhibition that I had here, during the setup, even if I had help of awesome technicians, I was like, I can do this and I can move these from here to there. And it was very nice because I was in control of the situation. In the second case, it was like, okay, put me in the iPad and just drag me around and I'll tell you what to, what looks fine, what needs to be changed. And they were very, very helpful with that. And we had a lot of volunteers as well. Basically people who know the platform and who wanted to be part of something like this. And it was basically that sort of exchange.
This isn't the only exhibition that Dorian's put on. She's also done some work with augmented reality. And as a challenge, she decided to have it outdoors.
One of the last exhibitions that I had here was for the Abandoned Normal Devices Festival. It was up north in Castleton, the Peak District, really nice place. And I co-curated that exhibition with Matthew Plummer Fernandez, who is a Colombian-British artist. Basically, we did augmented reality outdoors commissioned exhibition. It was so much fun, where we commissioned artwork from Mexican artists, and then for getting the funding there, we had a lot of help from the British Council Mexico. Thank you. And what we plan to do in exchange again is to have a series of activities in Mexico City, in a museum there that's called Laboratorio Arte Alameda. So that's what's coming next. In February, we'll be having a symposium and a series of workshops regarding what we did for the Abandoned Normal Devices exhibition. We really wanted to make that happen because for the exhibition that we had in here, it was a very, I would say, a light-hearted experience for people. So basically, we chose a trail inside Castleton. So it was basically from A to B, and there were augmented reality pieces along the way that were site-specific, especially commissioned for that particular area. So it was a sculptural approach, I would say, in the sense that you have to physically go to the artwork, even if it was digital. So we handed out some iPads with an application, and if you wanted to zoom in, you had to physically zoom in and approach the artwork, which was great because you had people who could, you could walk around the pieces, look inside, almost, kind of like even go across the artwork, and it was a very nice experience in that sense. But we knew that we were basically talking about border politics, which is, a very heavy topic. So even if the experience was very playful and very, lighthearted and people were having a lot of fun, we knew that we had to do something about the context of the exhibition. And probably that was not the space to do that. And that was not the space to, kind of like have these very tough conversations towards this. However, we're going to be doing that in Mexico now, which we thought was the best way to approach, the outcomes of the exhibition. Now that we also know the opinions of the people who went there and saw the artwork and, kind of had and built their own stories towards the pieces that were being shown there, which was also very interesting. So we can now have that and, take those ideas and the core ideas for the exhibition and also the artists and take that to Mexico and talk about that in depth. So that's what's coming next. In terms of the PhD, yes, I will be coming back to the UK. I want to do, basically my application for the PhD was about how to develop strategies and curatorial tools for exhibiting digital art towards, all of these past year and the exhibitions that I've had this year. I realized that there is no such thing as a very specialized way of approaching this artwork. And it tends to get very tricky, There's always this question of if this is, for example, net art, which is basically a website. Should we exhibit this in a museum? And if we do so, how? And sometimes, there has been, of course, a lot of exhibitions regarding this sort of artwork. But then, sometimes it fails in sense of there's a lot of people who's like, okay, I can't really sit down and go through all of this artwork because there's a lot of people surrounding me. And, this is just not something that I would be doing as a collective experience or people that feel that it's not meant to be inside these sort of spaces in such a way. So I know that there's a lot of, I didn't do this to be exhibited in this way, or I did this to be an experience that has to be approached in a very particular way and so forth. So I think that there hasn't actually been something quite as specific as, let's just go fully into this and develop strategies from there. Because also, when you think about digital art, even if not all of digital art is immaterial art in a way, it's a whole universe. It's just, it's gigantic. And it's still growing and it will keep on growing. And, we need to start tackling this sort of, issues that have been raised in the past, at least 2 decades now. So, I hope that if I get accepted for my PhD, I will look into that and, try to come up with basically strategies, because there is no one way to approach, there is no way of writing down a series of instructions and say, oh, this is what you need to do to make a digital art exhibition successful. It would be great if there were such a thing, but there is no way to do that. But at least a strategy on how to think about this and how to provide solutions for it. I think it's necessary, and hopefully I will be looking into that.
So that's the end of the interview for this month. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Dorian for being on the episode. You can find out more about her online. She's on Twitter for a start, so she is at DorianA_Rios. That's RIOS. Plus, you can also find her website Antimaterial, which is anti-materia.org. I believe she's currently in Mexico, but she's coming back to the UK soon. So if you're based in either and you want to do some work with her, then feel free to reach out to her. Otherwise, as always, we are always looking for suggestions of other artists to be on the episodes. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at TechniqueUK, or you can find us on the Create Hub website. That's create-hub.com, and there is a contact form there. So that just leaves me to say thank you again for listening, and we look forward to speaking to you again next month. In the meantime, take care.